When I was about 15, I came up with the idea to landscape our backyard. Now, don't get me wrong, it wasn't a bad backyard. My mom has a wonderful green thumb, and she always would work tirelessly on the gigantic beds in the back of the yard. However, she and the rest of us really gave very little attention to the beds that backed up to the house. But I was going to change that. I sketched up the backyard. I did some research. I picked the right shrubs, the best tree. Finally, I gathered my crew to help me that perfect Saturday morning. My mom, my dad, and me. And we began work in the crispness of the morning. It wasn't too long until I realized that the work was, well, difficult. We had to dig up sod and bushes and roots and these long things that went really deep that would never end, called roots. It wasn't exactly as much fun as I had dreamed it up to be. So eventually, I left. Honestly, I don't remember that part too well, but I assure you my parents do. My dad told me at one point he just looked up and I was gone. Neither he nor my mom knew where I went, but one thing was for sure, I was not coming back to this project. What do you think? A man has 2 sons, and he goes to the first and says, "Son, go and work in the vineyard today." And he answered, "I will not." But later he changed his mind and went. The father went to the second and said the same, and he answered, "I go, sir." But he did not go. Which of the 2 did the will of his father? What do you think? All right, you don't have to answer. I'll just tell you myself. I didn't do the will of my father or my mother, or really even myself, as I was the person who started the project. You know, there's a lot going on in our gospel for today. From questions of authority, interpretation, conviction, invitation, to questions of commitment, of words versus actions. The chief priests and the elders are questioning Jesus. It seems as if they are threatened by the prophetic campaigns that John and Jesus have been leading. So despite the signs, despite the marvelous work, the miracles, the teachings, the chief priests move to undercut Jesus' authority in front of the crowd. You know, they are the people who should be looking out for God's movement in the world. But instead, they are acting as if they are prosecutors of the faith. So in his defense, Jesus responds with that parable. But this parable is more than a story. It's a question begging for an answer. Which of the 2 sons did the will of his father? The parable is elementary. Its answer is undeniable. It's direct. The chief priests and elders know immediately what they have walked into. The first they answer, and they're right. Jesus is telling them, talk is cheap. It's your actions that define you. We seem to be living in a world that is growing in words but shrinking in action. How often do we hear words of love, invitation, forgiveness, and reconciliation, and yet see Christians behaving in ways that are, well, restrictive, dismissive, cruel? How often do we see people pack the pews or the Facebook pages or YouTube channels, but not heed the words of acceptance and nourishment, empowerment, and action radiating from the gospel? Our faith is nothing without our action. So Jesus is inviting them into action. He is letting the chief priests and elders know that they aren't just called to sit in the temple and occasionally critique the work of the divine. They're called to participate in it. God is expansive. Like when the prostitutes and tax collectors go out and see a prophet in the wilderness, not restrictive, like the temple elites chiding Jesus. We are called to broaden what we understand, and we are only able to do that if we partake in the work of God. That's why I'm so grateful for the mediator. You are a church that understands the need to participate. And I'm not just talking about how you serve at the barbecue or teach Sunday school or help in the church office. Those are all wonderful ways of helping this church community. But I'm talking more about how you live your life, day in and day out. your kindness, your curiosity, your openness to experiencing God all around you, the people you come in contact with. You see, that's discipleship. And that's what sets this church apart, that you at the Mediator take what you have learned from scriptures and the traditions of our church, and then you go out into the world and you affect change. You're not just people with empty words. You are empowered and you act. And I want you to know how proud I am to be associated with a church that loves their community so much that they are willing to physically be a part of building it up. You were like the people who went out into the wilderness to visit John and became forever changed. You were people of conviction and work. So I guess today I just want to say thank you. Thank you for how you continue to inspire me. Thank you for not only your openness to the divine, but your willingness to act upon the Spirit's movements. You were the first son, a true disciple. I love you. God bless you. Goodbye for now.